He lived in a small, crowded house on the edge of the city, a poor man with worn-out clothes and tired eyes that reflected years of struggle. Every morning, he woke up before the sun rose, rubbing the sleep from his eyes and preparing himself for another long day. His work was hard and exhausting. He carried heavy loads in the marketplace, ran errands for shopkeepers, and did small odd jobs wherever he could find. Despite the physical pain, he never complained because he knew that every coin he earned brought him closer to a better life. His neighbors often looked at him with pity, seeing a man who had nothing, yet he carried himself with dignity and a quiet strength that no one could take away. He didn't own much, just a small worn-out bag, a few clothes, and a notebook where he jotted down his dreams. He dreamed of a life that was different from this, a life where he could smile without worrying about money, a life where he could love and be loved in return every day. As he walked through the busy streets, he saw people with expensive cars, well-dressed couples, and children playing in big gardens. And every day, he felt a mix of hope and sadness, wishing that one day he too could have happiness like that. But he never let jealousy or anger enter his heart. He believed that one day, fate would reward him for his hard work and honesty. He had grown up in this city, in the same small neighborhood where he now worked. His parents had struggled their whole lives, and they had taught him the value of kindness, humility, and perseverance. Even though his stomach often rumbled from hunger, he would never take anything that didn't belong to him. He would share whatever little he had with neighbors in need. And sometimes, he would sit quietly, watching the sunset, thinking about the woman of his dreams. The idea of love was always in his heart, a light that never went out. He didn't know if such a woman existed, someone who would see him not as a poor man, but as a person with a good heart. But he believed, deep down, that one day, he would find her, someone who would look past the worn-out clothes, the tired hands, and see the soul beneath. One day, while carrying a basket of fruits through the crowded streets, he accidentally bumped into a man who dropped all his papers, and without thinking, he helped pick them up. The man looked at him in surprise, noticing how polite and honest he was. And even in that small act, the poor man felt a spark of hope that maybe kindness would bring something good into his life. As days went by, he continued working tirelessly, sometimes earning barely enough for a meal. Yet he never stopped dreaming. He never stopped believing that love, happiness, and respect were waiting for him somewhere. His friends were few, but loyal. They would gather in the evenings near the small tea shop and talk about life, sharing stories of small successes and big dreams. They laughed at times, cried at times, but always encouraged each other. He often felt lonely, walking home at night under the dim streetlights, the wind cold against his face. But even in those lonely moments, he reminded himself that patience and perseverance were the keys to life. One evening, while sitting on the steps outside his house, he looked at the stars and whispered a silent prayer, asking for a better future, asking for love that was real and true. He didn't pray for wealth, because he believed that money could come and go. But love, respect, and happiness were rare treasures. The poor man had learned to be strong through struggle, and to smile even when life seemed unfair. People passing by often ignored him, seeing only his humble clothes. But he carried hope like a shield, and his heart was full of dreams that no poverty could destroy. Little did he know, his life was about to change in ways he had never imagined. The woman he had always dreamed of would soon enter his life, and the days of struggle and waiting would meet a moment that would shake him to his core. One sunny morning, as the poor man walked through the busy streets carrying a basket of vegetables, he noticed a crowd gathered near the fountain. Curious, he moved closer and saw a woman standing in the middle of it all. She was stunning, with shining eyes that sparkled like the morning sun and a smile that could make anyone forget their worries. People were whispering about her, some admiring her beauty, others gossiping about how she seemed so out of place among the busy market stalls. But when their eyes met, the poor man felt something he had never felt before, a strange warmth in his chest, as if his heart recognized her before his mind did. He stopped in his tracks, holding his basket tightly, afraid that even a small movement would break the spell of that moment. The woman seemed gentle, kind and graceful, yet there was a confidence in the way she stood, a calmness that made her look unshakable. Something about her made the poor man believe that she was not just beautiful, but also real, like she could understand the world in ways others could not. Days passed, and he kept seeing her in the market, sometimes buying fruits, sometimes helping an old woman carry her bags. Every time he watched her, he noticed little details, the way she laughed when someone told a joke, the way she looked around carefully. Noticing everyone around her, he realized that beauty was not only in her face, but in her actions, in her kindness and attention to others. The more he saw her, the more his admiration grew, and with it, a hope that perhaps someone like her could care about someone like him. One afternoon, the woman dropped a small purse near the steps of the market, and without hesitation, he picked it up and ran after her, calling out. He managed to catch up, and she turned, surprised, her eyes meeting his. "You dropped this," he said softly, handing it over. His hands trembled slightly, but he tried to hide it, afraid she would think him clumsy or unworthy. She smiled warmly, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you so much. I almost didn't notice," she said, her voice gentle and melodic. That small interaction felt like the beginning of something, a connection that neither of them could explain. For the first time, he found the courage to talk to her more often, asking about her day, helping her with small tasks, and sharing stories about his life. He didn't mention his poverty or struggles, not because he was ashamed, but because he wanted her to see him as a person first, someone with dreams, hopes, and a heart full of honesty. The woman, in turn, seemed drawn to him, not by his looks or money, but by the way he listened, the way he cared about people around him. She found comfort in his simplicity, in the way he treated life with patience and dignity. Slowly, a friendship formed, filled with small gestures, laughter, and shared moments. The poor man began dreaming of a future with her, imagining a life where they could walk together, without worry, where love mattered more than wealth or status. One evening, while they sat by the fountain, watching the sun set, he noticed the woman looking at him differently, as if she could see all the unspoken words in his heart. That moment gave him courage to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could love him too. The city around them moved on. People hurried home, markets closed, and streetlights flickered on. But for them, time seemed to slow down. The poor man felt a sense of hope he had never known before. A hope that life could be more than struggle, that love could enter even the most humble life. He promised himself silently that he would do everything he could to make her happy, to deserve the chance to be with her, and to cherish every small moment they shared. Little did he know, she too was noticing him, admiring his honesty, kindness, and courage, and that their lives, though different in every way, were about to intertwine in ways neither could have imagined. Days turned into weeks, and the poor man and the gorgeous woman spent more time together. Their friendship grew deeper with every passing moment, filled with laughter, small jokes, and quiet conversations that made both their hearts feel lighter. He discovered how much they shared in common. Despite coming from very different worlds, they both loved simple things like the sound of birds in the morning, the smell of fresh bread, and the way sunlight touched the streets in the afternoon. He began noticing every little detail about her. The way her hair fell softly on her shoulders, the sparkle in her eyes when she laughed, the gentle way she treated everyone around her. And with each detail, his feelings grew stronger, feelings he could no longer ignore. He knew it was love, a pure, honest love that made him want to be a better man every single day. Yet, the thought of confessing terrified him. What if she didn't feel the same? What if she laughed at him for being poor? These questions haunted his mind, but he couldn't keep his heart silent any longer. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky with shades of orange and pink, he decided to share his feelings. He walked slowly to where she was sitting by the fountain, heart pounding, hands trembling slightly, and took a deep breath. "There's something I need to tell you," he said softly, voice shaking. She looked at him, curious and attentive, waiting for him to continue. I care about you," he admitted, "more than I've ever cared about anyone. I may not have much, but my heart is yours if you'll have it." The woman's eyes widened slightly, and for a moment, silence hung between them. The poor man felt a cold fear creeping in, but then he saw a small smile forming on her lips, a smile that filled him with warmth and hope. "I've felt the same," she said gently. "I didn't know how to tell you, but I see your heart, and it's the most beautiful thing I've ever known." Tears welled up in his eyes, a mix of relief, happiness, and disbelief. He had never imagined that someone like her could feel the same way about him, that she could love him for who he was and not what he had. From that moment, their relationship changed, blossoming into a romance filled with passion, trust, and understanding. They walked through the streets together, hand in hand, feeling as though the world had suddenly become brighter. He started planning ways to make their future secure, thinking about small gestures to show her how much he loved her. He saved every extra coin he could, not just for himself, but for the life they might one day share. Friends noticed the change in him, how he walked taller, smiled wider, and had a light in his eyes that had never been there before. The woman, too, seemed happier, more alive, as if his love gave her strength and joy she hadn't realized she was missing. One evening, he gathered all his courage and decided to propose. Not with a grand gesture or expensive ring, but with sincerity and honesty. The way he always approached life, he knelt down in front of her under the soft glow of the street lamp, holding her hands tightly. "I may not have riches or a palace, but I promise you my heart, my loyalty, and my love forever," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. She looked at him, tears in her eyes, and nodded. "Yes, I will marry you," she whispered, and in that moment, the poor man felt a joy that words could never describe. A joy that came from love, hope, and the belief that life, even in its struggles, could reward a good heart. Their engagement became the talk of the small town, a story of love that crossed social boundaries, proving that true love does not see wealth or status, only the heart, only the soul. As they walked home that evening, dreaming about the life ahead, the poor man held her hand tightly, knowing that no matter what challenges came their way, their love was strong enough to face them, and deep inside, he knew that their journey was just beginning, a journey that would test them, teach them, and ultimately show the power of love in the most unexpected ways. The day of the wedding arrived, a day that the poor man had dreamed of for so long. The sun rose gently over the small town, casting golden light on the streets and houses. People bustled with excitement, neighbors whispering about the wedding of the humble man who had captured the heart of the most beautiful woman in the town. Despite his poverty, he felt like the richest man alive, because today he would marry the woman he loved, the woman who had seen his heart and chosen him. Early in the morning, he woke with a mixture of nerves and joy. His hand shook slightly as he buttoned his worn shirt, yet his heart felt steady, full of hope. He walked through the streets toward the small chapel where the ceremony would take place. People smiled at him, some nodding with respect, others whispering their admiration. He felt the weight of their eyes, but also the warmth of their goodwill. Meanwhile, she was preparing in a modest home. Her dress simple but elegant, her hair was pinned carefully, and her eyes sparkled with a mix of excitement and love. Friends helped her with the final touches, but her mind was only on him, on the man who had made her feel seen, valued, and loved beyond measure. As the ceremony began, the poor man stepped forward, feeling the cool breeze and the soft sunlight on his face. His heart raced, but he took deep breaths, reminding himself that this moment was real, that all his struggles had led to this. The doors opened, and she appeared, walking slowly toward him, her eyes locked on his. Every step she took made his heart beat faster, tears threatening to spill. He noticed the way the simple dress swayed with her movements, the way her smile lit up the entire chapel. And in that instant, he realized that no amount of wealth or luxury could have given him a moment as perfect as this. They exchanged vows in soft, trembling voices, promising to support each other, to love without condition, and to face life together. The words were simple, yet full of power, because they were spoken from the heart. Unafraid of the world's judgment, friends and family watched quietly, some wiping tears, others smiling with joy. the small chapel, humble and unadorned, seemed to glow with love, as though the walls themselves celebrated the union of two hearts who had found each other against all odds. After the vows, they stepped outside, greeted by the bright sunlight and the smiles of everyone around. The townspeople had prepared a small celebration, simple food, flowers, and music filling the air. He held her hand tightly, feeling her warmth, and whispered, "I can't believe this is real." She laughed softly. "It is real because we made it real together." That day they danced, laughed, and shared moments that would be remembered forever. The poor man looked around and felt a sense of pride, not for money or possessions, but for love, honesty, and perseverance. He realized that happiness was not measured by what he had, but by who stood beside him. The woman smiled at him often, her eyes filled with gratitude, admiration, and love, and in those glances he found the strength to believe that they could face any challenge, no matter how difficult. The wedding ended with quiet moments as the sun began to set. Painting the sky with orange and pink, they walked together toward their small home, hand in hand, hearts full of hope. Each step was a promise, a step into a life built not on wealth, but on love, trust, and shared dreams. That night, as they lay side by side, he thought about the journey that had brought them here, the long days of struggle, the small acts of kindness, and the courage to dream. All of it had led to this moment. And he realized that no hardship, no poverty, and no obstacle could have stopped this love from finding its way. The days after the wedding were like a dream come true for the poor man. Every morning, he woke up beside the woman he loved, feeling a warmth in his heart that he had never known before. Their home was small and simple, but it was filled with laughter, love, and little moments that made life beautiful. He worked hard each day, carrying goods, running errands, and doing odd jobs, but now his work felt lighter because he had her waiting for him, ready to smile and greet him when he returned. She noticed his tired hands and worried eyes, yet she never complained. She would prepare a simple meal, her hands moving gracefully, and often sit with him as he told stories about his day. Sometimes they would just sit quietly, holding hands, enjoying the comfort of being together. It was in these simple moments that they found the greatest happiness. He admired how she made their small home feel like a palace, not with gold or luxury, but with love, care, and attention to every small detail. Her laughter filled the rooms, her voice became the melody of his days, and he realized that beauty was more than appearances. It was in the kindness, patience, and understanding she carried within her. Sometimes they would take long walks through the streets of the town, hand in hand, waving to neighbors, sharing smiles, and laughing at small jokes. People noticed them, a humble man with his gorgeous wife, and many whispered about the unusual pair. Some doubted that love like theirs could survive the hardships of life. But for them, those doubts meant nothing because they had already built a world of their own, one where love mattered more than wealth or status. He tried his best to provide for her, bringing home the little extra he could earn, buying small gifts, a fruit she liked, a ribbon for her hair, or a sweet treat. She appreciated every small gesture, never caring for grand displays, only loving him for his heart and effort. Nights were often spent talking about dreams. For the future, imagining a life filled with more love, maybe children one day, and a home where joy would always outweigh struggle. Sometimes, the poor man would watch her sleep, her face peaceful and radiant, and feel a gratitude so deep that it made him tear up silently. He had always dreamed of love, but now he understood what real love meant. It was not perfection. It was patience, understanding, and being there for each other even when life was hard. He shared with her his fears too, about the struggles of life, the little money, and the hardships he had endured. And she listened with care, offering words of comfort, strength, and reassurance. Sometimes small arguments would come, a misplaced word or a misunderstanding, but they would always resolve them with honesty and love, learning that marriage was not only about happiness but about compromise, trust, and respect. As days passed, their love grew stronger, creating a bond that felt unbreakable. They laughed more, cried together, and celebrated every small success. Even a tiny meal prepared together felt like a grand feast, because it was shared with love. Their life, though modest, was full of meaning, full of moments that made them feel alive. Every morning brought hope, every evening brought gratitude, and every night brought peace. He often thought about how life had been so cruel at times. Yet now, it had rewarded him with the most precious gift. Love that was true, sincere, and unwavering. One afternoon, while he returned home earlier than usual, carrying a small package he had bought for her, he felt a strange sense of anticipation. Little did he know that a moment awaited him that would shake his heart, a moment that would test their love in ways he had never imagined. The days of bliss, laughter, and dreams were about to meet a sudden surprise, something that neither of them could have foreseen. But at that moment, as he stepped through the door and saw her smile, he felt nothing but happiness, believing that their love could overcome anything. And in that happiness, the quiet peace of their married life seemed unshakable. One afternoon, the poor man decided to finish his work early. The sun was high, the streets crowded, and he felt a strange pull to go home sooner than usual. He thought it was nothing at first, just a sudden feeling, but little did he know that today would change everything. As he walked through the familiar streets, he imagined coming home, seeing her smile, and sharing a quiet meal together. He pushed open the door of their small home, expecting the familiar warmth and laughter. But instead, he froze in the doorway, his heart skipping a beat. There she was, standing near the table. Yet not alone. Someone else was with her, a man he had never seen before, laughing and talking as if he belonged there. Confusion struck him, a cold wave washing over his chest. He dropped the basket he had been carrying, the fruits rolling across the floor, making a dull thud. She turned to him, eyes widening in surprise. I didn't expect you so soon, she stammered. Her smile was gone, replaced by something he couldn't understand. His mind raced, tried to make sense of the scene. He felt anger, hurt, and betrayal, all mixing together in a storm that left him dizzy. Who is this? He finally managed to ask, his voice shaking. The man looked at him politely and introduced himself. A neighbor or perhaps a friend. He tried to explain, but the poor man's heart was heavy. Seeing laughter where he expected love, seeing casual gestures where he expected intimacy. The woman tried to calm him. It's not what you think, she said, her voice soft, pleading, but the poor man felt a lump in his throat, tears threatening to fall. His mind flashed back to all the days of struggle, all the moments of love, and suddenly, it felt as though everything could be taken away in a single moment. He stepped forward, trying to understand, trying to hear her out, but the sight of them together, so close, made his chest tighten with pain. Please, listen to me, she said, reaching for his hand, but he pulled back instinctively. Not ready to forgive, not ready to accept explanations, he sank into a chair, overwhelmed by emotions he had never experienced before: anger, disbelief, hurt, confusion, and a deep fear that he might lose her. The man he did not know, seeing the tension, quietly left, leaving them alone. The silence that followed was heavy, thick, almost suffocating. She approached him slowly, her eyes full of tears. I promise, nothing happened. It's just a misunderstanding, she whispered. I invited him to help with the chores today. That's all. I would never betray you. He wanted to believe her. He wanted to trust the woman he loved more than anything. But the shock, the suddenness of it, left him numb. His hands shook, his stomach churned, and he couldn't speak. He sat there, staring at the floor, trying to process the scene, trying to make sense of the flood of emotions. She knelt beside him, taking his hand gently. I love you, she said. I've always loved only you. Please don't let this misunderstanding break what we have. Slowly, the cold in his chest began to thaw, replaced by confusion and cautious hope. He realized that the situation was not what it seemed, that love was not always clear in the first moment, that even the strongest hearts could be tested by fear and doubt. For hours they talked, voices soft, emotions raw, tears fell, apologies were whispered, and slowly, understanding returned. He saw her sincerity, felt the honesty in her words, and remembered all the days of bliss they had shared, the early days of marriage, the laughter, the small moments of love. He realized that one misunderstanding could never erase the bond they had built, that trust, once rebuilt, could grow even stronger than before. That night, as he held her close, tears mingling with laughter, he knew their love had survived its first real test, and deep inside he promised himself that no matter what surprises life threw at them, he would fight for this love, protect it, and cherish it, for it was the most precious gift he had ever received. The night after the misunderstanding was quiet, almost heavy with unspoken words. The poor man sat by the window, staring at the dim streetlights, trying to calm the storm inside his heart. He kept thinking about the woman, her gentle eyes, the way she had reached out to him, and the fear that had gripped him earlier. Slowly, he realized that his love for her was stronger than anger or doubt, that no single moment, no misunderstanding, could erase the bond they had built. The woman approached him softly, her steps careful, her eyes full of worry. She knelt beside him, taking both his hands in hers. "Please, let me explain everything," she whispered. "I would never hurt you. I love you too much to ever do that." He looked in her eyes, searching for any sign of deception, and found only sincerity, only truth, reflected in her tears and the tremble of her voice. She explained how the man earlier had been a distant relative who had come to help with errands, how she had not expected him to arrive home so early, and how the laughter he had seen was nothing more than a casual conversation. Slowly, piece by piece, her words began to clear the fog of confusion in his mind. He remembered all the small gestures of love she had shown him, the days of bliss they had shared, the way she had looked at him with pure admiration. And he realized that trust was not blind, but it was built on understanding, communication, and patience. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of fear lift from his chest. And in that moment, he understood that love was not only joy and laughter, but also forgiveness, resilience, and faith in each other. They spent the night talking, sharing their feelings openly. Each word, each tear, each laugh slowly mended the cracks that had appeared. He admitted his fear, his sudden doubts, and she forgave him gently, telling him that her heart had never wavered. In that honest conversation, they discovered a new level of closeness, a deeper bond that came from surviving the first real test of their marriage. The poor man felt a warmth in his chest, a sense of relief and gratitude that he had never experienced before. He realized that life would throw unexpected moments, but what mattered most was love and trust. And now, more than ever, he wanted to protect and cherish this love. The woman smiled, seeing the change in him, how he had grown even stronger through this brief moment of fear. "We will face everything together," she said softly, "and nothing can break us if we stand side by side." That night, as they held each other close, he promised silently that he would never let doubt control him again. He thought about the days of struggle before their love, and how each hardship had prepared him for this moment of clarity. For the first time, he understood that true love was not only about happiness, but also about patience, forgiveness, and trust. The hours passed with quiet conversations, shared laughter, and tender touches. Every word and every look strengthened the invisible thread connecting their hearts. In the days that followed, the poor man noticed small things that he had always loved about her. Her gentle smile in the morning, the way she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, the small notes she left for him around the house. Every little gesture reminded him why he had fallen in love and why he had chosen to trust her completely. Slowly, the fear that had threatened their happiness dissolved, replaced by a new sense of hope and confidence. He realized that misunderstandings were part of life, but love, when true, could survive anything. And as they sat together one evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon, he whispered, "Thank you for loving me, for trusting me, for staying by my side." She smiled, her eyes glistening with tears. "And thank you for loving me back, for believing in us, for choosing me every day." In that moment, the poor man knew that their love had become unshakable, stronger than fear, doubt, or hardship. And deep inside, He felt a peace he had never known, a certainty that their journey together would be filled with love, resilience, and unwavering trust. Life slowly returned to its gentle rhythm for the poor man and his gorgeous wife. The misunderstanding that had shaken them now felt like a lesson rather than a threat. They laughed together in the mornings, shared quiet meals in the evenings, and held hands as they walked through the streets. Every day was simple. It was perfect in its own way. He began to notice how love had changed him, how it gave him strength even in the smallest moments. The struggle of his past, the endless days of work and hardship, all seemed worth it because they had led him to her. One afternoon, as they sat together by the small fountain near their home, she rested her head on his shoulder. "I never imagined love could feel like this," she whispered. "Like home, like safety, like everything I've ever wanted." He smiled, feeling a warmth that went deeper than happiness, deeper than joy. "And I never imagined I could be this lucky," he replied, "to find someone who sees me, believes in me, and loves me as I am." Days passed into weeks, and the small town watched the couple with quiet admiration. They had become an example, proof that love did not depend on wealth, beauty, or status, but on honesty, patience, and the courage to trust. The poor man found joy in the smallest things, from preparing a simple meal to sharing a quiet laugh with his wife. He learned that life's treasures were not material, but moments of connection, trust, and understanding. One evening, as the sun painted the sky with orange and purple, he reflected on their journey, remembering the struggles he had faced, the doubts that had crept in, and the unexpected tests of love. And he realized that every hardship, every lonely day, and every tear had prepared him to cherish this love fully. He had learned that life could be unpredictable, but the heart, when honest and open, could navigate any storm. She looked at him, noticing the thoughtful expression in his eyes, and smiled. "We've come so far," she said softly, "and yet, I feel like this is just the beginning." He nodded, taking her hand in his. "The beginning of a life where we face everything together, with love guiding us." In the days that followed, they made small plans for the future, dreaming of a home filled with laughter, perhaps children, and countless shared moments. They knew life would not always be easy, but they also knew that together they could face any challenge. One morning, he woke earlier than usual, watching the sunrise, feeling gratitude for the journey that had brought him here, for the struggles that had shaped him, for the love that had found him, for the woman who had chosen him. Not for what he had, but for who he was. He realized that life's true rewards were not measured in coins or possessions, but in the love and trust that grew between hearts. That night, as they lay side by side, he whispered softly, "No matter what happens, I will always choose you." She squeezed his hand, whispering back, "And I will always choose you too." Their lives were simple, yet rich with meaning. Every day was an opportunity to love, to give, and to grow together. They had learned that happiness was not a destination, but a journey, one taken hand in hand, filled with challenges, surprises, and unforgettable moments. Months passed, and their love only grew stronger. Each moment, whether joyful or difficult, became a memory that bound them closer. They laughed louder, hugged longer, and faced every obstacle with a courage that only true love could give. The poor man sometimes looked back at his past struggles and smiled quietly, knowing that all the hardships had led him to this perfect moment. He understood that life had its own way of testing people, of shaping hearts, and that faith, patience, and love are the greatest rewards. One evening, under the soft glow of the street lamps, he held her close, whispering, "Thank you for choosing me, for loving me, and for believing in us." She rested her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "And thank you for never giving up, for trusting me, and for being the man I love." In that quiet moment, they realized that true love was not just about happiness. It was about trust, forgiveness, resilience, and the courage to face life together. And with that understanding, they fell asleep, hearts full, knowing that no matter what the future held, their love would always guide them.